Good morning, good morning. You are watching Morning Brew on Politics Social with me, Graham Hughes. It is Monday, the 12th of August, 2024. Well done for getting this far, everyone. Hello to everyone in the chat. We've got Katrina in there, we've got Johan, we've got David Welsh, we've got Lee Seymour, we've got Simon in there, Paul, Lofty the Softy, we've got Colin Baker, everyone in the chat. If you would like to join these wonderful socialites in the chat, just subscribe to the channel. That's all you need to do, and wait a minute, and then you'll be invited in. So, another South Londoner, says the big Hon. My face has brewer's droop, says Patrick McCarthy. Okay, Paul Ewan, people complaining about the length of sentences needs to remember they were low-hanging fruit who pled guilty and got an automatic third reduction for that. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the response to the Farage riots, which Farage hates them being called the Farage riots, so we definitely shouldn't use the hashtag Farage riots to talk about the riots that he helped incite. He helped incite riots in our country, which led to the burning down of a Citizens Advice Bureau, a library, and the attempted murder of refugees in a hotel in Rotherham. Attempted murder. They attempted to burn down a building with women and children in it. And I don't feel like we should let Nigel Farage off the hook here. I don't think we should let him forget what he's done, the crimes he's committed against us, the people of this country. But not just Farage, also Elon Musk, who has decided to go toe-to-toe with Keir Starmer, saying, "Oh, you're not the rightful rulers of the United Kingdom or something." I don't know. Don't really know what's going on with Musk. He's obviously off his tits on ketamine, and as a result, he's not at his best, is he? Is he? No. He must be such a disappointment for the people who thought that he was all right. Not me. I've not liked him for a very, very long time, actually. Ever since he decided to stop the high-speed rail system, well, tried to stop the high-speed rail line being set up between Los Angeles and San Francisco, which he effectively lobbied against by creating bullshit like the Hyperloop system, which was just an affront to the laws of decency and physics and common sense. Anyway, Richard H says, good morning. Daily Blase, good morning, Graham. Good morning, all. Hope everyone is very, very well. Good morning to you, sir. I'm a bit better. I've still got the cough. Waiting for the Tory talking head to say the riots wouldn't have happened under Conservative government, says Mike Higgins. Well, that's the thing. Like, the Tories have been silent pretty much over the rioting. That they haven't really said much at all. They haven't used it as a means to have a dig at Labour. In fact, Suella Braverman hasn't, tweeted for 2 weeks. Now, maybe Twitter is actually too toxic, even for Suella Braverman. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, it could be. Lots of people going to Threads now. If you want to find me on Threads, I am at Graham David Hughes. I have a blue tick, so you know it's me. It's not an imposter account like on Twitter. It could be anyone. Anyone could be anyone on Twitter. It's a verified account, which I don't have to pay for. So that's nice. Also, James O'Brien follows me on Threads, but he doesn't follow me on Twitter. So, you know, where my loyalty lies in that matter, even though I don't think James O'Brien has been showering himself in glory the last few months, especially after the Sangeeta Maiska affair. No, not affair, but you know what I mean. Situation, so we say. Let's move on. Hello, I'm not in a good mood, says number 3. Well, mates, just make yourself a nice hot cup of tea and then join us ranting about the far right being just the worst. But also take pleasure in the fact that the justice system has kicked up a gear with a former director of public prosecutions in charge of the country. He is the Prime Minister now, saying, right, here's how you deal with it. You make a public show of these people going to jail. And people going, oh, as was said in the chat there, people complaining about them not getting particularly heavy jail sentences compared with, say, for instance, the Just Stop Oil campaigners who were jailed for organising disruption. And you dig into why they got such long sentences, you see that they wanted a court trial, they disrupted proceedings, they had lots of previous, blah, 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 blah. I still think that it was a very, very, very harsh sentence. I don't think they deserved a custodial sentence. I think it's, a community service would have been a better idea, and more appropriate for what they did. However, that wasn't the case. They did get 4 and 5 years in jail each, which is a ridiculously long time for a non-violent offence like this. But they did plead guilty. And the way it works, pretty simple. Like, if you are accused of a crime and you say, it wasn't me, I didn't do it, and so it goes to court, and you're found to have done it, you will get a much more harsh sentence than if you, for instance, say, oh, I did it. Yeah, that was me. Yeah, you've got me banged to rights, copper. You'll get a lighter sentence. And that is a way of making it so that our courts aren't always clogged up with trials going on where people are protesting their innocence, etc., etc., when they're obviously guilty. And so, yeah, as a result of that, it was a really good idea to have the courts open 24 hours. It was a really good idea to make sure that these people who pleaded guilty were sentenced within days of committing the crime. Within days! It's like almost unheard of when it comes to criminal prosecutions. And finally, televised it. They said, right, we're going to televise it. We don't normally televise courtrooms in this country, but they made a special dispensation because they knew the effect that it would have. And it had the effect that they wanted. On Wednesday night, there was this list that had gone out to all of the gam-gams, all of the rioters, the far right, the neo-Nazis, the fashtards, whatever you want to call them, saying, here's a list of places that we want you to target. And it was asylum, refuge places. It was lawyers, home addresses where they were, looking at, or business addresses who looked after asylum seekers as clients. It was horrific. And the public response to that was amazing. People went out en masse and said, no, we're not having this. There was another hotel that the Nazis wanted to get to, and there was like one. There's this amazing picture of this one dickhead with the Union Jack wrapped around him, and literally hundreds of people between him and the hotel that I assume that he was wanting to attack because he was told to do so by the likes of Nigel Farage and Rupert Murdoch and Elon Musk and other foreign billionaires, millionaires who just control the narrative, control the thinking for these people because they are so lazy. People go, oh, you've never done a hard day's work in your life. And you're like, these people are so lazy, they can't even be bothered to think for themselves. Like, imagine that level of just sloth. Just like, this goes beyond sitting on the couch and playing video games all day. This is like, I can't even be bothered thinking. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to move. You don't have to run a mile. You don't have to compete in the Olympics. Just think. But no, can't be arsed thinking. I want some millionaire, some privately educated millionaire, to do all my thinking for me and to form all my opinions for me and tell me what those opinions are so I can take them on board and then go out and riot. So yeah, so the two things that came together beautifully last week, which really gave me hope after quite a depressing sight of the riots in Hartlepool, where they burnt down a Citizens Vice Bureau, in Walton, in Liverpool, my neck of the woods, where they burnt down the Spello Harbour, a library and centre for helping young people get into work, just off County Road in one of the most deprived areas of the city, not just the most deprived areas of Liverpool, but one of the most deprived areas of the United Kingdom, and not just one of the most deprived areas of the United Kingdom, one of the most deprived areas in Europe. In Europe. And that hub, that library was sorely needed after the Tories and, their terrorist friends took 800. No, it's more than that, isn't it? They took hundreds, possibly thousands of libraries away from people because they're like, oh, we don't need these anymore. Because, say it with me, doesn't affect the rich. They don't need libraries. Here's the thing, right? If it hadn't been for libraries, specifically the Central Library in Liverpool, which is a beautiful building. If you ever go to Liverpool, you come out the station, and opposite you, you've got St George's Hall. Go to the right, you've got the Walk of Art Gallery. You've got the museum a little bit further down the hill, down William Brown Street, and in the middle you've got this beautiful circular library, and it's amazing. It's a wonderful, wonderful building. And if it hadn't been for that building, if it hadn't been for the fact that I could go in there and get my hands on every single Lonely Planet covering every country in the world, I wouldn't have been able to do my journey to every country in the world. Simple as that. And so, yeah, I'm eternally grateful for the existence of libraries. And you can say, oh, well, the information's on the internet. It wasn't. It wasn't. Even back in 2008, it was not all on the internet because it wasn't all on the internet because people were doing blogs and they weren't necessarily going to every country. Was it possible? Well, it didn't tell you, you could say, oh, I went to this place and it was wonderful. I did all these things. It didn't tell me about border entry, which borders were open, what I would need in terms of visas, letters of invitation, all that kind of shit. So, yeah, a library being burnt down in my home city particularly was galling. And so I was in a bit of a low ebb. I'm not feeling particularly great anyway, just in terms of illness. And yeah, last week when I saw the crowds out on the street on Wednesday, when I saw the face on those gormless dickheads getting sent down for years for attacking the police, causing an affray, participating in a riot, I was like, okay, that's reaffirmed my faith in this country to a certain degree. But yeah, it was wonderful to see that outpouring of people's love, because that's what it is. There was a great video by Zoe Gardner which went out on TikTok, and she was talking about the fact that there were so many what we call mixed relationships, which is just, I don't like that term at all. It's ridiculous. But let's say multiracial relationships, and they are, British people are getting with people who may have come from another country, or whose parents may have come from another country, heaven forfend. And she made a point that love will actually save the day. It's love that will defeat hate, because people are falling in love with people from all over the world, and that's a good thing. And this is one of the things that I hope happens over the next few months, as a result, possibly as a response, should I say, to what's happened with these riots, is I want the government to start making a positive case about immigration. They've got 5 years before the Murdoch press can do anything to them, really. They've got a massive majority in the House of Commons. Over 500 MPs in the House of Commons are now progressive. They're like centrist, centre-left, hard left. That's it. 500. There's only 150 that aren't. It's less than 150, actually. So with that kind of stonking majority, brilliant. Bring in stuff that the SNP are going to vote for. I know they've only got 9 MPs now, but, bring in stuff that the Lib Dems are going to vote for, that they're going to want, because they're going to see it as a good thing. Because this is how we beat Murdoch. I was thinking about this in terms of Murdoch is this absolute cretin who has changed the political face of Australia, the UK, and the US. He has an outsized command of those countries. You could argue that he's lost control of the US, Fox News and Trump. But in the UK, for many, many years, he controlled the narrative that Downing Street was pumping out, right? And if you wanted to become the leader of this country, you had to go and suck on, suck up to Murdoch. I don't think that's applicable at all with Starmer. And one of the things that Murdoch has in common with the likes of Putin and with the likes of Musk is he wants to spread dissension. He wants to spread arguments. He wants families to fall out. He wants friends to fall out. He wants colleagues to fall out, neighbours. He wants everyone at each other's throats. And you see this in our politics. You see this in our body politic. The way that there'll be no quarter given in Parliament. The parties wouldn't work together. They would refuse to work together. If one side wanted to do something, the other side wouldn't, and vice versa. Just for the sake of it, even if it was a good idea, They will say, no, because that was your idea and we hate you. And you see this in America, where the genital obsessed party, the GOP, the Republicans, have just gone, no, for the last probably 40 years in their Congress, in their parliament, blocking every bit of legislation that has tried to get on its feet, because there is very little in the way of bipartisan agreement on anything going forward. But here's the thing, there used to be a lot more bipartisanship. Here's an example. They banned alcohol. In order to ban alcohol, they needed to change the Constitution. Well, I don't think they needed to change the Constitution, but they did change the Constitution, which requires a 2/3 majority in both houses. In both houses of Congress, House of Representatives and the Senate. Like, how do you get to that unless you have a degree of consensus amongst the politicians? They're not just going, no. And it was a stupid idea, of course. And it was repealed 10 years later. But that's not the point. The point is that it went through, didn't it? And yet, as a result of Murdoch's meddling and possibly Russian interference, we entered an era where, on both sides of the Atlantic, where the politics became so adversarial. And then, as an extension of that adversarial nature of politics and of the press and newspapers and everything, we got pulled into the referendum, the fraudurendum, the Brexit fraudurendum, and that put us, normal people, at each other's throats. Because I find it, and I don't know about you, I still find it very difficult to forgive people who voted to ruin my life. Well, I'd say ruin my life. Just, let's say, put my life on a direction I wasn't expecting it to go on. I had my dreams, I had my aspirations, and they've been crushed. They've been absolutely crushed by the Brexit referendum and the people who voted for that. So I find it very difficult to forgive the people who voted for it. I'm not James O'Brien. I don't say, oh, well, And the thing is, with James O'Brien, I think he can say he can forgive people for voting for it because, say it with me, he went to private school. It doesn't affect him. He's a multimillionaire. It doesn't affect the rich. Brexit doesn't affect the rich. In fact, he's done quite well out of it because he sold books, etc. But this isn't the place where my career is at the moment. This isn't where I think it would be had we not voted for Brexit. So Murdoch in that way won. He won because he's turned me against members of my own family. He turned it against people that I know, friends we've had for years. And that's what he wants to do. Why? Because, like the baddie in The World Is Not Enough, the James Bond movie. Sorry, no, Tomorrow Never Lies. Tomorrow Never Dies. Sorry, like the baddie in Tomorrow Never Dies, which is a very strange title for a movie. The idea of having people at each other's throats, i.e. creating war, is very good for newspaper sales. And don't forget, the Daily Mail is the most read news site in the world. Millions of people tune into Fox News every freaking day. And they're fed just an undiluted diet of lies, bullshit. And they love it. Okay, I'm going to just jump into your comments now. We've got number 3. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat. That is very kind of you, Richard. I'm thinking that any local libraries left could have factual displays about immigration, housing, climate change, etc. Also in the House of Commons. That would be fantastic. Alec Barrett, I still want single transferable vote for council elections. Pretty please. Yeah, okay, Alec, I'll see what I can do, mate. It would be good though. One Angry Pagan says, Graham, Labour have disappointed me. 6 Badger Call licenses in Dorset, Wiltshire. Wilchester? Just make up a new county, shall I? And Oxfordshire. This goes back on their pledge and makes me even more pissed at Liz Webster. I don't know the ins and outs of that, One Angry Badger, and we will need to discuss it at some point, I guess. And I would prefer them to be vaccinated. I don't know if this is a cost thing, that it's just cheaper to call them than it is to vaccinate them. But, I wouldn't be upset about introducing some apex predators to just, rip them apart and eat them instead. Hey, it's nature's way. It's natural, Why would you want to give them a humane death? Anyway, moving on. Stephanie says the jellyfish Starmer acted immediately, but it takes time. Oh, so Stephanie was referring to someone called the jellyfish, not calling Starmer the jellyfish. But it looks like quite a funny message there. The jellyfish Starmer acted immediately, but it takes time to get everyone to a Cobra meeting. Indeed. Another example is the approval of SCOTUS judges. They used to be approved of nearly unanimously. Since this century, it's purely along party lines, says Johan. And impressions. Jellyfish, it doesn't take a week to call and get a Cobra meeting together. No, he didn't start. You can keep telling yourself that, says the jellyfish. Okay, whatever. Let's have a look. Christopher Bowles. O'Brien is often quite pompous. He asks good questions, but doesn't seem to evolve in his overarching opinions. Yeah, and he's not great on trans rights either. He doesn't really mention them. He shies away from them. He goes, oh, I don't want to upset anyone. I think he's got a friend who's very, very anti-trans who doesn't want to upset because reasons. Van did about 10 nights for the miners in 84, says Captain Bart Roberts. Van? Who's Van? Van Morrison? Van den Plas? Van der Wijk? No, that's not a real person, is it? And the Quantum of Solace is a normal title. Yeah. I'd love to write a Bond film. Just get some exotic locations together. 3 absolutely awesome action sequences sticking together with a modicum of plot. I would like to see a Bond film set in the 60s. I think it'd be so much better. Start the canon again. Start it in 1950s. Start it in the 50s and do it like Mad Men. Do it like a pastiche of what it was like in the 50s and 60s. Have everyone smoking all the time. Have that casual misogyny, sexism, and just show how horrific it was and the attitudes of people back then, how horrific they were. Paul Ewan, thank you very much for the super chat, my friend. That's very kind of you. More library and community hubs, please, Labour. Yeah, well, Labour are getting onto that. They've also they've mentioned Sure Start. Whenever you talk to a Labour MP, they often talk about Sure Start and the impact it had on their life, or people that they know, or their constituents, and hopefully that's going to start again. Sure Start was basically a thing that the Labour government brought in that after 1997, in which you could go and get help bringing up your kids, and just simple stuff, cooking, cleaning, changing nappies. It was great. It was really, really helpful and put you in touch with other people who could help give you a support network. We all know how difficult it is looking after young children. Even those of us who don't have them ourselves, we can appreciate that it is very difficult. Tin Jug, right, have a great day. Always stick to hard facts and truths. Feelings and opinions are a weak fart in the wind, much like Career MP's words. Indeed. Anyone, this is Copperberg, anyone who heard who the next Bond will be, I heard it was Aaron Taylor Johnson, but it's all gone quiet. That's a kick-ass, isn't it? You pretty much described Austin Powers, Graham says, hating puds. Yeah, but that was done to comedy effect, whereas in Mad Men's fantastic. It's so good at it's like a horror show. It's like The Fall of the House of Usher or something. You watch it and you're like horrified at the treatment of women, the treatment of Don Draper's, the way Don Draper treats his wife, the outdated attitudes, the things that people just thought were normal back in the day. And I think that could be really effective because Bond doesn't work these days. And if you try and make Bond more progressive, I'm not going to use the W word because it annoys me when people use that as a pejorative, but when you try and make him look more progressive, it doesn't really work. That's not James Bond. He was a product of his time. I think of Flashman. From the Flashman books, he was the bully in Tom Brown's school days, and then an author decided in the 1960s to make a string of novels of this bully grown up, going around the world being an absolute arsehole, and always getting away with it. He's a coward. He's a thief. He's not a very nice person. Let's put it that way. But he always comes out on top. And it works set in the Victorian era of expansion of empire building. The expansion of the British Empire. It works in that context. It would not work now. And it's another thing why when you take a book that is set in a particular time period, it doesn't always work if you put it in a modern update, I don't think. And we can talk about this till the cows come home, but I always feel like I would prefer to see a movie based on H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, which is actually set in the 1800s, when you've got aliens in spaceships and the people on the ground have got muskets and cannons. I find that way more interesting than Tom Cruise and his son going off and then his son coming back for some reason. Skyfall and Casino Royale prove you wrong, Graham. What? Skyfall? Skyfall, the one where he's got one job? Sorry, spoilers if you haven't seen Skyfall. Put your fingers in your ears for the next 10 seconds, right? He had one job, and that was to defend M. So what does he do? Takes her up to Scotland to some remote farm where they sets up a load of Home Alone-esque traps for the bad guys who turn up in an attack helicopter. And what happens to M? She carks it. Well done, James. Brilliant. Well done, mate. You did us proud there. With the one job you completely failed to do. Lord Flashheart, yeah, indeed. Cowboys and Aliens. Well, I was thinking of Cowboys and Aliens when I said, like, muskets against the... But that's what it's like in the original H.G. Wells. But they get like a battleship and they fire, cannons from the battleship to against this alien tripod thing that's coming towards them. It's brilliant. It's exciting. It's like, oh my god, they don't stand a chance. But now we're like, well, we could just nuke them, couldn't we? We could just fire a nuke at them, and that usually becomes because Hollywood's not that interested in doing new and novel things. It always becomes a thing of like, the government is going to fire a nuke at these bad people who've come to visit us from another planet with some kind of sky beam. And causing all this destruction, the government's going to launch a nuclear weapon, and we have to stop the alien and get rid of the nuclear weapon before the aliens, before the nuke goes off, and everyone dies. And you see that time and time again. It was in the first Avengers movie, wasn't it? Tropes, my friends, tropes. Modern versions of War of the Worlds miss the point of the anti-imperial message of the original book. Yes, David Skelly. And I think that we should... I mean, I will make an exception, okay? Sometimes Shakespeare plays work well in a modern setting. I think of the movie 10 Things I Hate About You, West Side Story, The Lion King. Well, it's not a modern setting, but you know what I mean. You can take those stories and Forbidden Planet, which is based on The Tempest, and make something new from it. But I think if you give it the same title as the Shakespeare play and then try and put it in modern times, it doesn't work quite as well. I don't know. It depends how you do it. But generally speaking, if a piece is of a period, then if you're going to make a movie of it, I just have a preference for having... it's set when in the time period it was meant to be set in. We are the Krell, and the internet and social media is the machine that will have us tearing ourselves to pieces. That's pretty true. Sounds like a pretty bad storm somewhere near the Midlands. Rumbles of thunder in the distance. Ooh. The death of M broke my brother's heart. He always carried a torch for that actress since he saw her as Titania in a Bean production back in the 60s. Ooh, she wasn't wearing much in that production, was she? Old Dame Judi Dench. Ooh. I'm so cultured and like not cultured at the same time. That abominable version was only a couple of years ago. I thought I'd been excised from my memory. What are you talking about, Big Hon? Sorry, Colin Baker's responding to the Big Hon. I'm going to try and find Big Hons. BBC did a version set in the 1890s but concentrates on a romantic plot line with the protagonist, and as a result was shite. Oh yes, yeah, I started watching that and it was crap, so I turned it off. McKellen's Richard III was just very good, and I think that was set in the modern day, wasn't it? Samantha Patrick, I prefer the TV series of War of the Worlds myself. Both seasons, I was heartbroken when they killed Paul Ironhalf off in the second season. Spoilers. Anyway, let's go. Should we have a look at the papers? Do you want to have a quick look at what the gutter press is saying? It's 10 o'clock. We should move on. You can see what I've been looking at for. I love it on adverts where they actually try and sell you something that you've already got. That happens a lot. You ordered this thing. Do you want another one? Like, no. Doctors and nurses accused of rape left to work in the NHS. Unbelievable story on the front of the Independent here. Shocking figures obtained by this newspaper reveal that 248 doctors and 400 nurses accused of serious sexual offences were allowed to work on wards without supervision or disciplinary action between 2018 and 2024. That was Tory Britain right there in a nutshell. Absolutely disgraceful. Absolutely. And we've got so many people in this country who would rather those people continue to be working in this country, to be working on wards and with vulnerable patients, rather than someone come from another country and do the same job. That is just horrific. Anyway, thank you very much to Johnny for the super chat. Thank you very much. If I can find the super chat animation, there it is. It's in a slightly different place on this screen. Love me some George McDonald Fraser, Sir Harry Flashman, VC, womanizer, poltroon, and all-round symbol of British exceptionalism. I really recommend the Flashman books. They are very, very funny. Very, I don't know. If you like that kind of humour, I always thought of it like it was kind of James Bond meets Brass Eye. That kind of caustic, oh my God, I can't believe you're going there sense of humour about it all. But Boris Johnson very much read Flashheart at some point, read the Flashheart books, and Flashman, sorry, not Flasher. Talk about bloody Rick Mail in Blackadder. No, the Flashman books. He obviously read them and went, I want to be like that when I grow up. Even though Flashman is very much the bad guy. He's the protagonist, but he's also the antagonist. He's very much the bad guy in all this. How did Trump grow his ear back? I don't think that the bullet hit his ear. I think it was a bit of shrapnel from the auto cue or something, but I don't doubt that he was shot at by a lunatic. I mean, it was bound to happen, wasn't it? Percentages, what's it called? The law of percentages, statistics. And then Olympics end in spectacular style. It was really fun. I don't know if anyone watched the end of the Olympics last night, but they had Mr. What's his name? Tom Cruise come in on a zip line, which is very brave after what happened to Boris Johnson. And he picked up the US, the Olympic flag and flew it to the US, where he jumped out of a plane with it. It was fun. It was fun, and I really enjoyed the Olympics. It was good, and it was a good distraction from the shit that was happening in the UK at the same time. And then there's this really, really heartbreaking picture of one of the victims of the horrific attack in Southport just 2 weeks ago. Her funeral was over the weekend, and this was the last picture of her with a cardboard cutout of Taylor Swift. She was at a Taylor Swift dance party. Really, really heartbreaking. Hopes that the worst of riots as an end is on the front of the eye, and continue those hopes, which is what I was talking about today. Far right use of Christian symbols is an offence to our faith, says Welby. Thank you, Justin Welby, for actually saying this, because I hate the way that the far right hijack Christianity. I'm not a Christian myself, but it pisses me off. And another point on that is the fact that you get the church leaders not calling people out over this, not calling out the likes of Trump, who pretends to be a Christian when actually he is the absolute opposite. He's the antithesis of the teachings of Jesus in every way. Cooper saying the UK has lost respect for police. This is Cooper saying riots show that people believe crime has no consequences, says Home Secretary. She's right. She's absolutely right. And that's what it's been like for 14 years under the Tories. People just thought it wasn't a problem. When you see that the rape statistics, that of every 100 men who are accused of rape, only one goes to jail. So if you sexually assault someone in the current system, you have a 99% chance of getting away with it scot-free. It's effectively decriminalised in a way that other crimes are not. But the Tories, that's their legacy, isn't it? So I hope Labour get on the ball with that and start the most important thing, and I've said this before on this channel, believe the victims. That's it. That's the first step. Believe the victims. Because I, as a man, am statistically more likely to be sexually assaulted by another man than I am of being accused by a woman of sexually assaulting her. So I'd like that protection, please. Thank you very much. And also, I've spoken about this before, it would change my behavior, especially when I was younger, how I behaved in clubs, going home after a night out. I would change my behavior so that I walked on, well-lit streets, so I knew that there was CCTV there. I would change my behavior in the way that I interacted with women and with other people in clubs and bars and things like that, if I thought there was a chance that I could be accused of something, and then it'd be up to me to prove that I didn't do that thing I've been accused of. And I know that laughs in the face of the whole innocent until proven guilty thing, but in these cases, it's very, very difficult to prove someone guilty, because it becomes he said, she said. And I like the idea of changing the mentality of men. So it's like, oh, I hope I'm not going to walk at home alone tonight because I might get accused of something. So they can feel what it's like to be a woman, where they go, I'm not going to walk home alone tonight after that, night out with my friends, because, someone might attack me. And then get away with it under the Tories. Knock down prices for Greenbelt to build on. Good. The Murdoch press, the Tory press, are going to continue using the term Greenbelt. Let's not forget, a lot of the Greenbelt isn't green. It just means the bits that aren't cities. The idea was that you weren't supposed to build on these places that weren't cities, but people did over the years, and then they left the factory, or they left the filling station, or whatever the hell it was, on the outskirts of the town, and now no one can build on it because it's technically Greenbelt, but it's not actually green. That's why Labour have tried to introduce the term grey belt. I don't know if it's really caught on though. Exposed, junior doctors plot to cripple the NHS again. Labour under fire after union plans. Fresh strike despite bumper pay rise offer. Okay, I bet it doesn't happen. And then the Daily Star, there's about the weather. No more rioting in the name of our little girl. The parents' heartfelt message at the funeral of the Southport victim as they pay tribute to their beloved angel. Dance to Heaven, Little Princess. That's on the front cover of the Metro. So sad. And then Financial Times. Harris leads Trump on economy in poll that marks sharp sentiment shift. Nice bit of alliteration there. And so there you go. There's all papers for you. Paul Ewan, body cams for women on a night out might result in better male behaviour. Yeah, but then you're putting the onus on women. This is my point. Put the onus on men to change their behaviour, to think, I hope I don't get accused of anything. Don't put yourself into a position where you might get accused of something. It would change men's behaviour massively, and it should. It absolutely should. Graham, those are definitely the thoughts of a father of a daughter. Yeah. Colin says, that was Tom Cruise. I'm moaning about how often we saw Snoop Dogg. He was everywhere. But actually, he was working for NBC. Is it NBC or CBS or whatever? It's the one with the peacock on the logo. He was a commentator on the Olympics for America. So, yeah, he kind of took over a little bit. Don't forget, the Queen parachuted into the stadium in 2012. She did. That was brilliant. Along with Daniel Craig. Back to James Bond. Anyway, right, so I'm going to leave you now. So thank you so much for watching. Blue Badger says, morning all, how late am I this time? Did I miss much? Nah, mate, you're fine. You're fine. I'm just wrapping it up now. So thank you very much for everyone for their lovely comments. Thank you for the super chats. It's really kind of you. I will be back tonight at 8 o'clock for the latest edition of Stateside, where we'll be talking a lot more about Trump's panic attack and the fact that he is not doing well against Kamala Harris, and I'm all here for it. Please, I like watching him squirm. What can I say? He's a monster. He's an absolute monster. He's a cretin, a criminal. He is an absolute scumbag who is tearing apart the soul of America, along with his horrific familiars like Putin and that Musk creep. Also, we're going to be talking on Geoscope tomorrow about Ukraine invading Russia, which is just, I mean, it's gobsmacking what Ukraine have managed to pull off. The audacity of it, and it absolutely caught Russia on the hop. So please join us for that tomorrow night. That's at 7:30 tomorrow. George, if a real high velocity round came that close to the ear, then the supersonic crack would probably deafen you. Yes, I don't think the bullet went by his ear. I think it was I think it was just a bit of shrapnel. But apologies, you missed the super chat. I'm very sorry. Let's go back up to see the super chat that I missed. So you don't normally see me doing this. I did that one. I did that one. Yeah, I did that one. Moving on up. Oh, sorry, Resloy 812. This is your first super chat, and I missed it. I feel so bad now. Thank you very much. That's very generous. No excuse for Labour now. With the majority, they need to make real change to people's lives. Proper minimum wage, increased nationalisation of water, etc. It's coming. It's coming. The real having a real minimum wage, a real living wage, is something that I know is high on a lot of MPs, Labour MPs' agendas, and also renationalisation of these failing public services like the trains. We know that's happening, and also the water companies. The thing that the government has to be careful on with the water companies is they can't take on these debts. They've got to let these companies effectively fail before they take them over, because otherwise we're going to be on the hook for billions to, I don't know, Canadian pension funds that have invested or lent money to these companies that have just been pouring shocking amounts of raw sewage into every single water stream in the country. Alan says, think on this. Trump is publicly losing whatever marbles he had left. Well, indeed. Anyway, so thank you so much for everyone's candor this morning. Thank you very much for joining the chat. I'll be back at 8 o'clock tonight, probably with Mikey Famine over in the States to talk about all the stuff that's happening over there. So please join us on this channel for that. And until then, I will say, give us a like on the way out. Thank you very much for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.